to another session of our webinar series, A Day in the Life of. We are very, very excited today and this afternoon to speak to Yandre. Yandre is a Business Development Director. Welcome, Yandre, to our webinar series. We're very, very happy to have you here today.
Hi, Priya. It's a pleasure to be speaking to you today.
Oh, no, this is going to be very, very cool. We had a little bit of a chat just before we went online to the session. So we've got some really, really cool advice for all of the people in the audience. If you have any questions, please drop them in the Q&A session, and we will be happy to pose them to our speaker. So let's get started. We always think that 30 minutes is a long time, but it actually goes so, so quickly. Yandre, maybe you can start sort of at the beginning. What did you study?
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I can't see you, but really it's a pleasure to be speaking to you today. So yes, as Priya explained, my name is Yandre Besaidnout. I studied at Stellenbosch University many moons ago. It was the first year in 2010. I guess I started my career like most people, not really sure what direction I want to take my career in. Started with BCom Law, then I changed that very quickly to a BCom Business Management that actually specialized in entrepreneurship and innovation. As it was going along, I absolutely loved the topic and the studies, but really I had no idea where this would take me, what to do with this career. All my friends were engineers and doctors and, specific professions. But eventually I ended up in consulting. Started my career in a graduate program at PwC in Johannesburg, and I ended up being there for about 7 years before I made the shift to where I am now. I'd since also completed an MBA. That was about 2 years ago. That's where I met Priya. And yeah, at the moment, I work as a business development director, as Priya had mentioned, in a small family-owned group that owns a couple of businesses in the hospitality sector. So primarily that would be restaurants, wine business, accommodation, and also something around properties. So it's a little bit of everything. I would say that even in my current job, I still do the work of a consultant, business development, and I'll explain a bit about the role in a minute, focusing internally on the organization to really improve it as best you can, but also looking externally towards growing the business and finding new revenue opportunities.
Okay, that's very exciting. Many hats are worn in a singular day, which must be very exciting. So let's talk about that. The portfolio consists of a bunch of different companies. What's a day like in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, many hats, never a boring day, and it's always very different. So depending on the day and the need, I guess my involvement in the different businesses vary. In some of them, I'm more involved in a strategic capacity. So the restaurant business, for example, the restaurants, of which there are about 4 or 5, have a very experienced team running them operationally every day. So my role there would be really on a more strategic level. Every month when the financials are produced, it's really to look at the performance of the business, where there might be areas that we can improve on, and then work closely with the team to actually implement them. So again, it's almost like consulting. We find a problem, sort of create a little project around it, and then implement it. One example of that would be where we looked at our procurement system. Really the crux of a restaurant business is getting your food from the suppliers at the right place, making it properly in the kitchen and making sure you waste as little as possible, and then obviously selling it for exactly the same amount and exactly the same quantity. So how you actually manage the procurements, the buying and the selling in the business is something very important. So looked at, for example, at how we optimize that system. And then on the wine business and the property business, it would be something else. I was just explaining to Priya, my day started with being on a building site where we are developing a new co-working space. So that really is meeting with electricians, builders, plumbers, designers as to where we are in the project. And that essentially is project management. And then an hour after that, I'm on the wine side where we were submitting our wines for international wine competitions and for wine lists that the restaurants are updating. So it really varies. I guess it's a funny story as to how I got there, but definitely something that suits my personality, where you can never get bored with a day like that.
Oh yeah, no, that's there's so much to this. You know, from sort of the perspective of what you've said to us about what you have studied and you know the day in the life of, I'm
Mm,
hearing there's a lot of logistics, there's operations, there's research, there's
mm.
communication with your team, sort of strategizing with everyone. Do you have any advice for students who are pursuing any of those areas in the sense of how they could sort of get into a business development perspective?
Mm. Um, yeah, I guess how I'll shape it is I'll maybe sort of explain it in the context of consulting. Although the profession of consulting, a lot of people aren't exactly sure what it's about. But again, even in my role now, this is a role we sort of shaped as I joined the group, and business development can mean many things. But I started, like I think most of these students are here, fresh out of university into a graduate program at PwC. And you know, most of the consulting houses, all the big ones, have a graduate program of sorts, where they take you through the different parts of their business, and you get on-the-job experience as to how to do their job. So I guess the first thing to do, or what I would suggest, is really the mindset that you have to have just going into this, actually for any industry. Really, just having that continuous learning mindset about, listen, there are things I'm curious about. I know I have very little experience at this point, but one, I want to find the people that I can learn from. And there's such a wealth of free material available online nowadays, or even paid material that can really take you from A to B very quickly in terms of your skill set. So, firstly, having that learning mindset, saying, okay, there's an area that I'm interested in. Maybe I don't know if I'm good at it, but that's where I'm going to start. Um, yeah, and I guess the second one, like you mentioned, is to be, you know, relationships are the crux of anything. If you put yourself out there and you really are proactive in meeting people, introducing yourself, saying who you are, like, listen, I have a couple of weeks available on my holiday. I would love to do an internship and just see what it's about. I think people really, that sort of goes unmentioned, and it's maybe not that common anymore. But those are the people that actually stand out and that make the most of those opportunities in whatever industry it is.
Yeah, you've got to have that. You've almost got, even though you're pursuing your degree, you have to have that sort of like self-started kind of an attitude.
Mm,
You know, you've got to have the right communications with people. And this all ties in with a question that we've got from the audience, and this has to do with the undergraduate degrees. So the question here is, which undergraduate degrees are the best that you should pursue to go into management consulting? What do you think?
Ooh, that's a nice question, actually. So management consulting by itself is already very broad. I mean, if these big companies, they have teams in customers that is really about sales and marketing. Then you have finance teams. Then you have data and analytics teams, operations, strategy. So really, it pulls on various academic fields and academic backgrounds. My graduate program, for example, it was called Foundation for the Future at PwC. They really wanted a broad variety of degrees, and we had people from everywhere, from marketing, arts, engineering, finance. They actually specifically stayed away from people with accounting degrees, because in the accounting profession, there's a route that you take. You can then go into audits and you do your articles, etc. For me personally, things that I think perform well in management consulting, and it's a funny one, it's actually engineering, specifically industrial engineering. These types of companies, and even different industries such as mining or banks, they actually love the way that engineers think. And industrial engineering is a little bit away from actually manufacturing and building and designing things. It's just thinking about systems and processes and how you can actually optimize it. So that was a very useful one. Um, and then what else I would say, it can even be after an undergraduate degree, is project management. If you understand how to manage a project and you can put a skill set together and manage people effectively, that is extremely valuable. So eventually, once you progress in your career in consulting, you will become a manager and manage projects on a daily basis. So at least those two, I think, can serve you very well.
Okay, that's fantastic. It's really cool that you spoke about industrial engineering, because we, interestingly enough, had a mechanical engineer last week on board who was also, even though he studied mechanical engineering, was talking about the advantage of actually looking towards industrial engineer. And that sort of speaks to the fact that there's so many more fields that are opening up these days, and the importance of sort of keeping things broad. I believe at some point you also mentioned to me that you did, for example, and it's not really relating, but it does in the end, a course in something to do, what was it? It was, I love that this is happening to me right now. I absolutely cannot think of the word. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just move on to
Why?
the next.
Was it technology?
It has to do with, the short course that you do when you work with developers.
Oh, yes. Is it Agile?
Yeah.
Is it the Agile Scrum methodology?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So when you're looking at it from a consulting perspective in business development, it's a little bit more beneficial to look at it from that perspective.
Yeah.
We've got a question here just to completely change things around a little, because I've waffled a little bit. We have a question from the audience who are asking about your most challenging and most rewarding parts of your job.
Ooh. Well, I'll maybe start with the rewarding. As I mentioned, the fact that my current job in this current group is so diverse, that really is something very exciting. You have to step into sort of different mindsets and different roles the whole time, either being very strategic and really look far ahead and really sort of pull on a lot of information sources to put a plan together. And then in another day, you have to be very operational, work very fast, really have attention to detail. And that's, for my personality, I love that. That is motivating and that is energizing at the day, where really you don't get into this, let's call it this habit, to really just do the same things over and over again. So that's very rewarding for me personally. Again, is maybe the flip side of that coin. One of the most challenging parts is to give myself structure. In large organizations, business development can be a team, and you do get people that have specific targets, line managers, ways that they work. In mine, really, at this point, it's just me sort of filling that role. So it can be challenging for me to give structure, to know, okay, listen, there's a few things that I need to focus on. This is where I'm going to have the biggest impact today. These are the low-hanging fruits that we have to address first. And I see that in so many people. I think 10 years ago, I would have said one of my developmental areas is time management. I really want to get better at managing my time. I think today it's still the area that I want to improve. Although I feel I'm getting better, it's never perfect. So that's probably one of the more challenging parts.
Yeah. Do you have any tips that you can share with our audience members? Because I think this is something that also applies to them, with their studies, sort of creating structure, sort of, managing their time. How do you personally deal with this, considering you said it's a little bit of a challenge for you?
I think just break it down into little steps. I mean, I know Priya, in our studies at the MBA, they also provided us with some, specific methodologies that you can use for time management. If you Google it, you're saying time management tools, time management tips, you will find a variety of frameworks and Excel documents or Word documents that you can actually use to very quickly put some structure in your life, to saying, listen, this is how I should know where to focus my time. And again, the second one is really to look for areas where you could learn. I know very quickly people are quick to say that they have very little time and they're very busy at this moment. But you'd be surprised as to how much learning you can do if you just look for 15 minutes here, 30 minutes there. The learning that's available online, how you can use tools such as ChatGPT to really learn a new skill is amazing. And I guess one third thing that I would say, it depends sort of what field you come from out of your studies. Having a good computer skills is almost a must. Just being proficient on Excel, on Word, some of the other tools already puts you at such a bigger advantage. these aren't new technologies, but they are still so critical in any sort of, let's call it corporate office type work that we're doing. And that can set you apart in an interview process or early on in your career compared to other people.
Okay. It's interesting that you brought up ChatGPT. There's always two ends of, that conversation. Some people say, or in some industries, they say ChatGPT is very beneficial. It makes me more efficient. I can work better. And then some people say ChatGPT does not belong in my particular industry. It needs to actually have a human element to everything. As a business development director and consultant, do you find ChatGPT to be efficient? And if so, how?
Yeah, that's a lovely topic. I mean, here are 30 minutes is going to fly by.
Yeah.
The short answer is yes, I feel it's beneficial, but it's very beneficial to get you started. I think a lot of the things that we do, whether it's, I used it the other day to say, if I am looking to bring our wines to a new market, Germany, for example, what are the things that I'm supposed to consider? And it then starts with a list, and these are areas that I can dive deeper into. But again, that just really gets you started, and it probably would have saved me a lot of time to find the right person who can advise me on this topic, and maybe they would have charged me money for it. But to actually do the work, to actually produce a written document to saying, listen, there's some thoughts and creativity that had to go in this. This is my work, and this is a plan that I feel I can execute. It's not there for that purpose. And I think people can run the risk of misrepresenting themselves in the workplace, putting this work forward as their own, where it isn't entirely so. Somewhere that'll catch you up when you're sitting in a meeting with a director of a partner or a CEO of a bank, and you can't really find the words to back up your work. So yes, in short, I think it's beneficial, but you need to know exactly what you're using it for.
Yeah, I mean, you still need to have the knowledge. You've got to do the resource. It's supposed to be there as a tool to assist people. It's definitely not there to do the entire job completely. So Yandre, you said Germany, and the Q&A session just blew up with a bunch of questions. So I'm just going to go through this. One of the questions here is, how much traveling is typically required in business development? So before you answer that, I understand, obviously, you're a business development director in a specific sort of, field with the family, with the business. So there might be travel involved for you. So if you could respond to that, but also in general, in business development, are there travel opportunities?
So yes, for me personally, there is. Our wine business is very young. So I guess our international distribution network is still very small. We have 2 international clients at this point, and we haven't had the need to travel to them. But as a wine business grows, as you guys would know, if you think about the big wines in the industry, Simon Six, Canon Corps, whatever it might be, you have dedicated people that are responsible for finding those new clients and maintaining the relationships with them. We are still a long way away from that, so I don't have a travel credit card yet, but you can trust I will tell my bosses that we need it once it's there. But again, back to the consulting profession, yes, their travel is very much a part of the job. It can either be local travel. I started my career in Johannesburg, but I frequently had to come back down to Cape Town to do projects here. And there are also opportunities for international assignments or international secondments. So that'll be anything from 6 months to 2 years, where you can get a contract with a office in a different country. It's one of the things that typically is very attractive about the consulting industry. It's great to do at a young age, early on in your career. It can get very tiring. But yes, so nowadays I travel a little bit less, but early on in my career, definitely.
Okay, so the screen's off, but that's perfectly fine. So we've also got quite a few questions with regard to internships in the consulting field. So are there internships available for students and graduates who are interested in following the consulting route?
Absolutely, there are. You'll have to do a little bit of research to find exactly one that works for you, maybe in an area or a town close to you. And again, it might differ between whether it's a big multinational company such as Deloitte, Accenture, or PwC, or something smaller. But I do know that the internships, typically they would be unpaid internships. They are a part of how the programs work. And then the graduate programs would be a little bit more structured. Those are paid graduate programs. Usually they are quite competitive to get into. I know the one that I entered, having an honors degree, at least an honors degree or a master's, was a requirement, a mandatory requirement. But absolutely, internships and graduate programs, they are available in consulting.
So aside from the, the fact that some of the bigger companies, they do advertise their internships, would you say that it's advantageous if you've got someone on the inside who can assist you, or Absolutely. It doesn't really make a difference?
No, absolutely. Nothing beats a reference. If someone is in the organization, they can firstly guide you on the process to say, listen, this is the person you need to speak to, or if they can put a good word in for you. People are very, very keen to assist. Once they can just feel, okay, this is someone I can trust and I know why this person's name came across my desk. So absolutely. If there's someone in your friends, family, or network that ask them if they know of any companies that you can go and spend your time in, and if they can put in a good word for you.
Yeah. So, that speaks to soft skills like networking. The more people the easier things do tend to be. You spoke about the graduate program, and we've actually got a question in the audience that's sort of relating to that. So this has to do with getting into management consulting or the graduate programs. But so the person asks here, what if I am studying something in a different field, for example, medicine? Can I get into a graduate program? What do you think?
Absolutely. There's no reason why you can't. And often you find that there are cases like yours, if you are studying medicine, for example, where it's quite unique. If you get someone who's in a very business-centered role, business-centered industry, such as management consulting, but they see your background in medicine, it immediately asks the question as to, there's something special about this person.
Okay.
I guess the gap that you have to bridge, if there are any, let's call it, finance skills, data and analytics skills that you might not have covered in your studies, that's sort of a challenge that you might have to face. But I don't think anyone would show you a way in saying this is not actually who we're looking for, just in general. But again, I must caveat that because it depends on which company. There are certain companies and certain graduate programs that are open to everything. Then you get certain companies and industries who are looking for something specific. They would prioritize MBAs, for example. They would prioritize business degrees, or they would prioritize technology degrees. So just be sure as to who you are talking to and what their requirements are for employment.
So let's say you've spoken to the right people and you got yourself into the interview stage of everything. Do you have any tips for our audience members? And this is a question from the audience with regard to the interview process, trying to get into the graduate programs.
Absolutely. Practice. Especially the consulting interview process is well documented. So do your research to see what does this entail. Sometimes it can be 1 or 2 meetings that are very much person focused. They want to understand you, where you come from, and the way that you think. And some of them can be quite intense. Multiple rounds with case studies that you have to solve. Some of them you have to solve a case study live in the interview, maybe over the course of 2 hours. And some of them, they give you a case study that you need to complete over the week and then send it back to them. So again, make sure you understand your company and what they're asking of people. Did I just throw up a little emoji there by itself?
Yeah.
Agrees with my statements. So yes, do the research, do a couple of practice interviews. You can practice with yourself. And again, there's a couple of nice tools available online. If you are interested, again, I know it's not at a graduate, it's more to do with a business school, but I was involved with Stellenbosch Business School's consulting club over the last few years. And I know they did put together a collection of tools and videos and research things that can help someone who is interested in consulting just maybe get up to speed. So if that's something valuable, Priya, I'd be happy to share it with you. And I don't know if it's possible for your guests.
Well, thank you. For the audience members, if you would like to actually get access to this document, please just pop us an email at Gradlinc, and then we will help you out with that information. Yandre, this interview process sounds very intense. We were talking multiple interviews and a lot of technical things and case studies. How much value do the interviewers put on the individual, to sort of see whether they like the person, to put it very, very bluntly, and they can work with the person? Is that more valuable or less valuable in the grand scheme of everything?
It always has to be valuable. I think the worst thing that you can do for yourself is to pretend to be someone else in an interview, and then you get that job, and then for the rest of your career, they are expecting a completely different person to rock up every day. So no, it's always a stressful process to go through, and you want to put your best foot forward. But the best thing you can do is to be your authentic self. If you don't know an answer, just say that up front. Maybe ask clarifying questions. I'm not sure what you mean. Can you give me an example? And then people see that you are authentic. You can firstly perform under pressure, and there's an element of trust there that this person won't bullshit you. Pardon my language, but I think it's very important to be honest. Let the person see a little bit about yourself, and share some stories so that they get a sense of whether you are a person that they can include into their team.
Yeah, I think with the sharing stories, though, we've had some experience, with the age-old question of, so tell me a little bit about yourself, but they definitely don't want to hear everything from, your childhood up until. So keep it relevant, but keep it authentic. Well, we're almost out of time. I think I would really love to know, so moving forward, it's been consulting, PwC, business development director, working with the company and all of the different industries within the company. If we have graduates in the audience who are very eager to pursue a similar path. So do you have any last minute advice that you would give the graduates on where they should focus to pursue a similar path to yourself?
Well, if they are clear, again, my situation is I would have never guessed that I would be here 10 years, 15 years down the line. And then sort of life takes you in different directions as long as you just keep moving. So my first thing would be, if you're not sure what direction you want to go into, take the first step. The first couple of steps puts another opportunity in front of you, and you never know what it's going to bring. The second one, again, if you do have clarity about the role you want to play in life, what industry you want to work in, potential companies that interest you, reach out to those people, do some research on them, and see if you can start spending some time with them. The hospitality sector is an interesting one. Again, whether you are in the restaurant trade or you're in accommodation, it's a variety of things. But again, I would say at least whatever tickles your fancy, be curious about it and be proactive in taking that first step.
Okay. All right. That's fantastic advice. Thank you so much for this. I need to wrap this up now. So I just want to thank you so much for, being on our webinar series, and thank you to everyone in the audience. This has been very, very great. There's so many questions I haven't gotten to, but I am definitely going to reach out to you, Yandre, if you don't mind, and get some more information and then just pass it on to all of the students who are still in the audience. Is that fine? Okay, awesome. All right, cool. Well, Yandre, thank you very much for everything, and we hope that you have a wonderful Monday afternoon.
Awesome. Thank you, Priya. Thank you, everyone.